All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Michelle Morris, and I am with Consolidated Planning Group. We have a fantastic presentation today from Marianne Hughes. She is a fantastic, dynamic speaker. I love being able to work with her. Her company is called uh, Special Family Transitions. Is that right, Marianne?
You got it.
Special Family Transitions. That was just off of memory, too. Um, she does presentations with us all the time, and this is so important because unfortunately divorce is very common in our special needs community. So I'm going to let her take over after I get through a few slides about who we are, and how we can help you on your journey as a parent of an individual with special needs. So Consolidated Planning Group has been around for over 30 years. We have experience in life insurance and investments, securities. We are fully licensed in all of those areas. We are here in Texas, based right outside of Houston, but we help families all across the United States. So as the families that we serve in Texas have started to move out to other states, we have just decided to go ahead and expand our business licensing to make sure that we can serve those families as well. So no matter where you are across the United States, Consolidated Planning Group can help you. And today's webinar is a great one that really will apply to people all over the country. You don't have to be from Texas to get something out of today's webinar. So we are members of the Special Needs Planning Academy. We are a chartered special needs consultant through the College of American Financial Services, and we are nationally certified as Social Security advisors. So we take this very seriously. We are financial advisors first and foremost, but 90% of our clients have children with some sort of intellectual or developmental disability. It's not just something we do once in a while. This is what we do every single day. We help families with things like protection plans for their families and thinking about what happens if the worst happens. How can we help protect you from those circumstances? Um, we help you think about lifetime care needs for your loved one, transition planning. There's 3 or 4 major transitions that we all go through in life. And it's very important to make sure that you are set up for success for your loved one. We help with ABLE accounts and making sure your money is in the right buckets and keeping an eye on those things for you. And we're here to advocate for you and to educate you on these topics so that you have an easier time going through this than our founder, Allison Scotberg, did, going through this without the help of a group like us. So, out of all of the 263,000 financial advisors in the United States, fewer than 200 of us focus on special needs planning. That's less than 0.1% of all the financial advisors in the US who understand the nuances and the little tricks and things that you need to know when it comes to special needs planning. So we know that it keeps you awake at night, probably thinking about who is going to take care of your child when you no longer can. So we encourage families to develop a future care plan right now, because the sooner that you can develop your plan and get things in motion, the easier it's going to be for you in the long run, because you simply need to make small changes and tweaks that can have a big impact over time. If you wait until later to do your planning, it's going to be more difficult, it's going to be more time sensitive and more of a stressful situation. So start planning now. No matter how old your child is, now is the time to get started. Think about what's going to happen after high school. You don't necessarily want your child to graduate to the couch. So let's think about vocational options, residential options, and educational options that are out there. we encourage you to tour these opportunities so that you get a feel for what these programs or residential communities are like, and get yourself on the waiting list if there is one for your preferred opportunity. Also, we want you to think long and hard before you just say a sibling is going to step in to care for your loved one. This can create a lot of drama in families, and we have been seeing this as we've been meeting with adults, where the sibling has become the caregiver of their special needs sibling, and it's not always very pretty. You know, your neurotypical child, of course, they love their sibling and they want to take care of them and they want to help you, but they've got their own lives and careers and families and ups and downs to deal with. And taking care of a sibling might be biting off more than they could chew. On the flip side, the individual who needs the care, you know, they've seen this person as their confidant, their friend, their partner in crime all these years. And now all of a sudden, that person is trying to step into a more authoritative role. And they might feel a little bit resentful about that. So it could cause a lot of stress in your family to just assume that a sibling is going to be able or willing to do that job. So just be careful, okay? Now, we do have all of our contact info, phone numbers, email addresses, links for websites, all in the chat box. Please take a look at that. I want you to know that today's webinar is being recorded. We will email you the link to the recording plus all of the slides later on today. We cannot hear you or see you, so please put any questions or comments you have in the chat box as we go along, and we'll get to as many of those as we possibly can. So please don't forget to use the chat box for that. And without any further from me, I'm going to turn it over to Mary Ann. I'm going to let her talk. I'm going to get her info in the chat box one more time just to make sure that everyone can see it. Mary Ann, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Michelle. It's always a pleasure to be on these webinars with you, and thanks for the wonderful introduction. I am
Can I ask you, are the neighbor's yard crew, is it too loud? Can you hear that? Okay, perfect. Please continue.
wonderful. Yeah, today, no yard crew on my end today, so lucky about that too. Yeah, so excited to be here today to share about my experience personally and professionally about making marriage work as a parent of a child with special needs or disability. I was married for over 21 years, so I've got lots of experience there. I know a lot of married people. And to know what works and what maybe doesn't work. And so my journey was one that led to divorce, but in my work, I see a lot of families and situations, and so I learn a lot from that. And so I want to share some of those lessons, some of the strategies for making a marriage work, having a stronger foundation and ongoing relationship, so that you don't end up in a divorce situation. And some of you here on this call maybe thinking about that. And so we'll talk about that as well. But I'm thrilled to see today both men and women as part of this event. So that's wonderful. I know sometimes as moms, we feel like we're taking on a lot of the work, but it definitely takes two to make things work. So here we are. So you're probably wondering, why is a divorce coach giving a marriage presentation? I, through my own experience and my professional, have lots of information to share. I'm definitely a believer in marriage and family. That's something I grew up with. Those are my values, and so I'm here to try to help you have a strong bond in your relationships, even if you're getting divorced, or maybe you're already divorced, or you're looking at another marriage. Whatever the situation is, those foundations are going to be important for you, for your and your children, and everybody in your life. I'm a mom of sons myself on opposite ends of the autism spectrum, so I've got experience with all kinds of challenges, and so I don't look at my divorce as something negative now. I know at the time it was very hard, but it's led me to a new purpose and be able to help all of you all in different ways. So I we grow through our challenges, and so that's what I'm here to share about as well, ways that we can learn from things, from ourselves and from others. And definitely a believer in advocating for ourselves, family, and kids. That's the most important thing, and I think that's why you're here today, is how can we help ourselves, advocate for ourselves, for our marriage, and how do we help our kids in the process? Because at the end of the day, that's the most important thing. Is, as Michelle mentioned, there's so many things we do for our kids and plan for their future, and definitely having um, parents who are involved, whether married or not, is something that's important to help that child throughout their lifetime. And so a lot of people don't feel like they need to work on marriage. I know when I first got married or thinking about being married, or even early on in my marriage, actually throughout my marriage, I guess, I didn't feel like marriage was something that you actually had to put a lot of work in. I had heard things about, well, marriage is a lot of work, and I didn't really understand that. I thought, well, if you're in love, everything will be fine. Well, that maybe was a different way of doing things, and maybe a little naive. But it is important to work on your marriage, even if you have a happy, good foundation. We don't want our everyday pressures to take a toll on our relationship and create more stress, or the stress that doesn't need to be there. So a lot of you may have heard statistics about the high rate of divorce among families that have a child with special needs. There's a debate among the actual numbers like 80% are mentioned. And so the point is, it's a higher number than the typical divorce rate, which is about 50%. And so, what can we do as a couple, as a person taking responsibility for ourselves and helping the others around us to um, to help ensure that doesn't happen to us, or minimize the impact that would have in the future. Some of you all may have parents who have been divorced, and so you're a child of divorce. So you see the impact, and personally have gone through that, what it might, how it affects kids. I was never, my parents stayed married till my dad passed away, so I don't have that experience. But I can see for my kids in my situation that my goal was to help them uh, when um, when the divorce happened, and continues to be my focus. And so that's what we're here for, to how do we help our kids no matter our situation. And we don't want to create extra stress unless it's absolutely necessary. But sometimes different things have different situations, and sometimes staying together may or may not be the right answer depending on your situation. But that is the goal: is we want to have a positive parenting relationship with our kids, and a good relationship with each other. And so on a parent, it's hard too. If we are going to end up down a road where it is going to face divorce, it's hard emotionally, financially. There's some challenges taking care of kids, co-parenting, and planning for the future for our kids. So we want to try to, as much as we can, to take strategies that will help encourage positive outcomes. And if we don't work on ourselves, as part of that, taking ownership of how we come into the situation in the relationship, then if for some reason divorce does happen and you get into another marriage, then the second marriage has has a higher percentage. So in a typical divorce, what I mentioned about 50%, the rate of divorce on second marriages is about 60%. And for third marriages, the divorce rate is about 70%. So it doesn't necessarily get better with time, because there's a lot of reasons behind that. But so we want to work on ourselves, work on some key coping strategies and relationship strategies, so that we don't become one of the statistics either now or later. And so there's a lot of reasons why marriages may end. Over time, you may find your relationship evolves in different ways, some positive and some negative. You may not have the closeness or intimacy that you did in the past, not just physical touch, but just emotional connection, or feeling that you can share things that maybe you did earlier on in your marriage. Um, we want the person that we married to be a lot of times our best friend, and things that we can share with. And it's sad when that is not the case, and people find in other people then to confide in. Communication is a big issue for a lot of families. Some people over time don't feel comfortable maybe sharing some of their concerns, or know how to communicate effectively without one person feeling defensive or angry or whatever it might be. So we want to find ways to make that work. So it looks like we skipped a slide. Can you go back a second there?
Sorry, I was sneezing and my finger.
Yeah, I know you're getting over a cold. And then infidelity happens a lot, whether it's a special needs marriage or not. Um, as I mentioned, people may go outside the marriage for that closeness or other reasons. And so, not to say that that's the reason for divorce in of itself. Some people face some issues and they're able to work through them. So definitely, if that's an option for you or that's something that you're interested in. But sometimes it becomes a pattern or something that will end the relationship, and that may be something um, you know serious to talk about and try to work through or see what the next steps would be after that. Sometimes over time, we change as people. Our values may change. We grow, we develop in different ways. And so we find maybe we're not as compatible as we were when we were young in our 20s or whatever the case might be when we first met and got married. Financial stresses take a toll on people. People have different ways of spending, different ways of saving. And if you're not going to be in line, then that causes issues as well. Sometimes there's issues where there's um, financial infidelity, I guess if you want to call it that. People are not sharing
Yeah, that's
what they're
true.
spending, what they're doing, and what money's coming in and hiding money. So that becomes an issue. The next bullet is about domestic abuse. And actually, you just want to share that financial abuse is kind of part of that. So it's not just physical abuse, it could be emotional abuse, financial abuse, all kinds of abuse where you're not respected as a person and there is some injury cost to you. And so domestic abuse, the reason for the divorce is there. That's about 23% of reason for divorce is based on abusive situations. So definitely you want to be in a safe place for you and for your kids. And so if you need resources to support you in that area, please reach out. Now, in addition to all the typical reasons for marriages having challenges, then we put on there the whole challenges of raising a child with a disability. Sometimes we find that one parent may have a difficulty accepting the child's diagnosis or being on board for doing things that are that one parent may consider being in that child's best interest. So I'll talk about that more as to why those dynamics might happen. But we want to try to be patient and try to bring the other party on board, other parent on board as to what the child needs and how to help them. But sometimes that becomes too much for both parents to agree on, and that becomes a reason for divorce. And then just the added day-to-day stress of raising a child. I never want to say it's because of a child that people get divorced, but it's just all the extra stresses. Maybe the foundation isn't strong enough. They're not working on these other aspects of the marriage. And that the day-to-day, the chronic sorrow, in addition to the initial grief and diagnosis, just takes its toll on people, and everything you have to do and focus on your child kind of leads some marriages to end. And we'll talk about ways to try to address those things so we don't end up there. But I did write an article a couple years ago in Autism Spectrum News about making your relationship work under the pressures of caregiving. So in this presentation, I'll touch on some of those aspects, but if you want more information on these topics, there's a link below that will work when you get the presentation. But basically, we talked about accepting the diagnosis, recognizing when the parent needs a break. Sometimes one of the parents may be the primary caregiver, even though both parents are at home or both parents are working. A lot of times the dynamics is that one parent maybe feels like they need to do more, or the other parent lets them do more or expects the other parent to do more. So it's important to balance some of that. Granted, if one person's working outside the home, one person's in the home, it's a different dynamic. But even then, that person's going to need a break. And so we want both parents involved and support each other as parents and support the child. And we have to be able to communicate needs and feelings, as we talked about. Sometimes it doesn't happen effectively in a positive fashion that's going to be conducive to try to address the problem rather than making things worse. And so a lot of times we don't make time for self-care as a child. When you have children who demand all our attention or a lot of attention 24 hours a day. And so how do we make time for self-care, and how do we make time for our spouse? So those are things that we definitely want to explore and consider as we face our daily challenges and planning for our future. And so when I was putting this together, this presentation together, the first time I went to my Facebook, which I'm active there, and tried to get feedback from people as to what they felt um, were contributors to a uh, long-term marriage. These are people that usually that were married and happy that responded. And so a lot of things that came up. These are the common themes that were shared, and you're welcome to add these to the post as well. Is having good communication, and somebody mentioned a safe word, and what that means is if you're not in a position to have that conversation right then and there, then say so and say, okay, well, right now I just got home from work or I had a long day with the kids or whatever it is. Let's make time to talk about it later. So we want to definitely address issues as they come up, but maybe like right then and there, maybe it's not the right time. Maybe wait till the kids go to bed or schedule a time, and that makes things go better as well. Setting up date nights and trips are so important. You won't believe how many people I meet and talk to, and I knew I was maybe one of these myself, who really don't prioritize making time with that spouse. So, think back to before you're married. You went out on dates, you tried to make the best impression on that other person. And so, granted, during marriage, other things come up, but we still want to make time for the other person, make them feel like they're still important, that we still value them, we still find them attractive, all the things that drew you to that person in the first place. And so a lot of people just don't make time for that, or are afraid to find sitters, or aren't comfortable leaving their kids alone. And so, yeah, I would encourage you to take that leap, find time to go out with your spouse, find either a parent or loved one or respite program or sitter or some kind of other ways to go somewhere without your kids, to be able to enjoy yourselves and have a kid-free evening as much as you can without the pressures of the day taking over the night and the conversation. Some people think the idea of a whole trip in itself is something that is not possible. Now you can do trips as a family, and that helps to break the monotony and have some excitement and things to look forward to as a family. But it's also good to take a trip if you can without the kids, just to reconnect, to enjoy yourself, leave your child with someone trusted. Maybe it's even an overnight, like at a hotel somewhere, if your kids are more comfortable being at home and you're not comfortable traveling outside the city for an extended period of time. So build up to that. Maybe start out with just a few hours, going to a restaurant or going to a movie, having like a date night type situation, and then extend to maybe one overnight and two overnights. And maybe at some point you'll have a week or more where you can leave your kids and feel comfortable that they're being well taken care of. But the kids will take time to get used to it as well. So that's why we want to start small. Find other opportunities to connect. Maybe it's meeting for lunch during the day. Maybe it's doing an activity together, something creative. So you never know. Find out what your hobbies are. Maybe involve your spouse in your hobby. Maybe get involved in their hobbies and interests. So there's all kinds of ways that we can show each other that we care. And a lot of people shared about how they had God at the center of the marriage, and they pray together, go to church together. And not that I'm here to tell you people what to believe or how to believe, but a lot of times the religious basis and values and foundation of the marriage are important to think about as you have challenges, to have them not grow to something that then is harder to deal with later. And so we also want to think about self-awareness, meaning what are we bringing to the situation? How can we do things differently? How can we change the way we do things or find ways to improve? Not that we have to always be inward looking and blame ourselves for anything, but there's always things that maybe will make us happier. Maybe we can learn new skills and new ways to communicate and approach situations. Then on the flip side of that, we want to have empathy for the other partner. Maybe they've had a long day. Maybe they've had some challenges in that day that maybe they're not going to be their best self. So we want to maybe support them, find out what's going on with them, and show that we care, and let them know how we can help them as well. Humor is important as well. I know it's important to laugh at ourselves sometimes. It's important to laugh at what our kids do sometimes, if it's not age appropriate or maybe because of their disability or for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just fun to be able to laugh at situations and look at the lighthearted aspects of it, as opposed to um, always having things kind of be a chore and looking at it in a negative light. Humility is important, and that was described to me as being comfortable to apologize if you've done something wrong, or a situation where you admit you've made a mistake, or that you're uh, open to feedback. So definitely, we want to open ourselves up. Sometimes we try to protect ourselves and our emotions, but we want to, especially with our partner, share what's bothering us and be open to constructive criticism. Not to say we're here to criticize other people, but we want to um, find ways that we can each improve and find different ways that are more effective, I should say, rather than improve, find ways that are effective um, to have the other party be more comfortable and willing to work with us in different situations. And so these are just some of the posts that came up, and we talked about some of these, but basically, I'll touch on a few aspects of it. Um, Being open and honest, respecting each other's boundaries and beliefs. Sometimes we lose sight of our boundaries. Sometimes we don't uphold our boundaries. So if something's bothering us, or we don't want to be treated a certain way, then we have to let the other person um, share that information and have them respect that. And not to say that we always have to get our way, or our way is always right. So compromise may be necessary, and that's part of marriage. But if you don't tell somebody how you feel and what you need and ask for help, then they're not going to know, because they may be so tied up and caught up in their own issues and concerns and stresses of the day. Now we talked about humility, and there's a phrase here about never go to bed angry. Some people that works for, and some people maybe, like we said, maybe just schedule a time to talk about things that maybe, depending on your situation. So you know your situation best as to whether it's best to address things that day, or say, okay, I need time to calm down, I need time to think about it, and kind of craft your response to that person and ways you'd like to express yourself. But definitely about sharing our information. Um, this one parent who has several special needs children has the 4 Ds. One is dialogue daily, date weekly, depart annually, meaning on vacation, either together or just themselves. And the D work, divorce isn't discussed. So they've agreed and are committed, because of their background and their values, that divorce is not going to be an option for them. How are they going to work through things? Talk about laughter, gratitude, positivity. There's some things in the pink area there about maybe some things that maybe some people are not comfortable with, maybe different ways to be in touch with your emotions, doing deep breathing, exploring different ways to express your connections. Some people may call it woo-woo, but some people, you just try it. Maybe something you haven't done before is a good way to get closer to your partner. And you can learn these things either online, or have other people come in and learn, teach you some of these techniques. But there's often lots of ways to get more information and more resources to help you, besides the things I'm sharing here today. Now, what's important on this, and we'll talk more about on the next slide, is consider your personality and the other personalities and how those work together. So you may have seen a book or heard about a book called The Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. And this has to do with things that are important to us, that we like to receive, but also how we like to act. So for instance, and the 5 ones are acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, physical touch. So for instance, some people like to do things for another person. That's how they show they love them. So it may be cooking for somebody, it may be cleaning the house, it may be like my dad, when he was living, would bring a cup of coffee to my mom in bed every morning. That's how he showed his love. And now some people may not reciprocate and want those things back, but that's what they like to give to show their affection. So receiving gifts. Some people like to receive gifts, and some people may think, okay, why did you spend money on this? It's not really important to me. But to that person who's giving it, that's how they're showing their love. So we want to show appreciation for that gift, even if it's something that maybe we wouldn't have picked out on our own. Um, and yeah, giving gifts also, is a reciprocal of that. Some people, it's quality time. It could be just spending time with that person. It doesn't have to be doing anything active. It could be just sitting in front of the TV on the sofa holding hands, just knowing that you have their attention and that is the focus of that time. There's words of affirmation. Some people like to hear it out loud. I love you, or you're doing a good job. For instance, my son likes to tell himself, good job, just to hear that. So, he likes to hear it. So he wants to say it and hear it both ways as well. And physical touch, that could be not just intimate touch, but just even like my other son. He likes getting hugs every day. And especially when he's under times of stress, he'll give me more of those hugs and need more of those hugs. And sometimes it's like, people with kids with sensory needs may know they like that deep pressure or different ways that helps them feel good and relaxed and reassured, and feel comforted. And so that could be, different ways as well. There's massages. One of my sons just started doing massage therapy. And so it's amazing how much that relaxes them. So you never know. Just try different things, for your spouse and for your kids as well. I do want to add there is a kids version of this for special needs families for those 5 languages. And granted, your child may not be able to verbally tell you what they want or need as a love language or what they'd like to receive, but there's a questionnaire and it helps you identify, well, what does my child, even if they're nonverbal, what do they enjoy? And how do they reciprocate to me? So you can kind of learn a lot and maybe adjust your strategies to your children. So maybe they do need more hugs. Maybe they do want more time with you, whatever it might be. So kind of look at that and ask your partner. So we want to do this together to see what works, because their love language may be totally different from yours. If you guys want to put in the chat, you're welcome to, as to what your love language is or what you think it might be, and if that's different from maybe your spouse. So that's something to think about, as you go forward and leave here today. I do want to mention about the different perspectives and approaches to dealing with grief, dealing with having a child with a disability, everything that goes along with it. We talked about the grief cycle and how some people have a hard time accepting the child's diagnosis. And so there's something called the grief cycle, where there's 5 phases, and different models will have different words and maybe different extra phases. But basically, you start with when you have something that's new to you, or a change in your circumstance, or a loss. It could be a death, it could be a divorce, it could be getting a diagnosis for a child. The first natural reaction is that you're going to be in denial. So, this can't be happening. Things are going to get better, whatever it might be. And then you get angry. So that comes up in different ways. And then you're bargaining, saying, well, if I do this, things will get better. If I had done different things, then this wouldn't have happened. So we don't want that to take over. And then we get to a state of depression. We just act so sad by the reality hitting in that it's difficult for some people to process that. But really, you want to get to the point of acceptance, which is when you're actually going to be able to take action and make changes and schedule time and do classes and do therapies to help your child, to help yourself, depending on the situation. So that is the goal, is to get from all these stages to acceptance. And everybody processes grief differently. And so some people may get stuck in denial for a long time, or sometimes these cycles repeat, depending on what stage of life you're in, depending on what stage your child is in, and so on. And so the important thing is to know that your spouse may be at a different phase than you are. So maybe you've gone through this, but your spouse is still struggling with a diagnosis, or how to deal with a child. Sometimes not just a spouse, and maybe other family members or community members that have an impact, and you're worrying about their thoughts on that as well. And so just know that you're there to advocate for your child once you've gone through these phases, and you want to help the other people get information so that they can know that these phases are normal, but we want to help them get past that, past those stages that kind of bring you down, to one where you're actually looking at it in a positive fashion, taking an approach that things can and will get better, and what can we do to make it better. So whether it's, like I said, our relationship or other issues related to our child with a disability. And so sometimes some parents may feel disconnected or not involved in the child. And one parent may see it as like, oh, I have to do everything, and they're not doing anything. And the other parent may see it as like, I'm not given an opportunity to do these things. So we want to have both parents involved in caregiving, in planning, and the therapy. So say you're the one taking the child to therapy all the time and you see what the therapist is doing. We want to bring the other parent in who maybe not be as involved to be involved, to go to information sessions together, to go to these type of sessions together, whatever it might be, to get on the same page and know that you're working towards the same goal in your marriage and in raising and supporting your kids and whatever challenges they may be facing. And we can't always do this alone. So definitely consult with experts, there's mental health experts, there's people like ourselves, Michelle, myself, all kinds of people out there who can help you, support you through these different challenges you may be facing at different stages in your life for different reasons. And so like we talked about, self-care is something challenging to a lot of people. But self-care is caring about yourself and caring about your loved ones and caring about your relationships. So we need to remember that we're important. If we don't take care of ourselves, then we can't be our best self. We can't help our children, and we can't nurture our relationship. So definitely about making time for you and being the best person that you can be the best for those you love and be able to do whatever you need to do to make that relationship work, the day-to-day things, as well as the future planning. So there's an expression, you can't pour from an empty cup. So sometimes we run ourselves ragged trying to do things for everybody else. But if we're not taking time to take care of ourselves, then we're not going to be able to be the best person we can in those other situations. And self-care may look different for everyone. Some people think self-care has to be going to a spa or taking a fancy vacation, but it could be as simple as making time for yourself, thinking about things you're grateful for. Because if you have the gratitude, thinking in that moment, if you're thinking a positive thought, you can't have a negative thought at the same time. So we want to make intentions about how we look at our day and how we look at ourselves, and what we can do each day to maybe have some downtime. Maybe it's just going for a walk around the block. Maybe it's making time for a cup of coffee. Maybe it's having lunch with a friend or getting on a phone call with somebody. Even those things can recharge us, replenish us, so that we're ready for the day and can be somebody who the other spouse enjoys being with and who's not going to be down, depressed. So we want to take care of ourselves. As I mentioned, how would you act if you were still dating this person? We want to kind of come across that way in a positive fashion. And not to say that things don't change over time and we have other responsibilities, but we want to make time for ourselves and for those that we love. And know that we are worthy. Some people think, oh, it's not something for me, that I can spend the time, but if it's not for you, your child is not going to suffer and not going to be able to make the advances that they need to. So yeah, definitely take care of yourself. Boundaries. So sometimes we have to say no to things. Sometimes we have so many things on our plate that just take up all our time and all our energy. Sometimes we have to know when to say yes and when to say no. And if also that refers to boundaries in terms of how people treat us. We have self-care is how, what we find acceptable. And so over time, those boundaries may get a little bit more lax, but we have to remember that we are worthy and deserve to be treated with respect. And so by acting in that way, we're letting people know that's how we want to be treated. Not to do it as a way to alienate people, but we want to do it in a positive way and to respect their boundaries and their needs as well. And by doing these things and showing your kids that it's important to take time, that mom or dad needs a break, or I need some quiet time, you're being a role model for them so they can value and see the importance of, like, okay, it's good to take care of yourself. It's good to get exercise. It's good to eat healthy. So we want to show them that it's not just something that we're doing, but it's something that they need to do and hopefully get some good habits by learning to seeing what you're doing.
It's so important that you model that for them and show them that it's okay and it's important to take time for yourself and to do things for yourself and not always just everything for everyone else. Because if they don't see you do that, then they're not going to. And don't you want your kids to take care of themselves and treat themselves once in a while? You should do the same thing.
Yeah. So my son, for instance, one of them, he likes doing puzzles. So that's his downtime and his relaxation time, which is better than playing with the iPad, which he also likes to do. And then my other son, he likes doing some other activities. So I give them their downtime. That's their self care um, routines that they have. So we got to respect theirs as well. And also, your spouse may have something that they like to do. So respect that as well and get involved if you can. But sometimes people like to have their own activities, so you don't necessarily have to insert yourself in everything that they may be doing or enjoy as their relaxation time. But with all of this, what if your marriage is still struggling or you're still having some challenges? Then definitely there's people out there who can help. I myself, as a certified divorce coach, help people not just in divorce, but even before divorce to kind of think about things and help them improve relationship or find different ways to express themselves. There's other kind of coaches out there. There's relationship coaches. There's parenting coaches. So find resources that will be helpful to you. So a lot of times we've gone through these things. We've met with experts, and we're still trying to decide. Well, do I stay in this relationship, make it work, or do I go? And these are hard questions. And like I said, this focus of this is marriage, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention some of these things. Some of you may be going through some of these challenges. And so we want to spend a lot of time on self-reflection, meaning, what would it look like if I stayed? What will it look like if I go? And what do I need to do in either way to try to make it a better situation? So we can reach out to family and friends who maybe have gone through this um, type of question for themselves. We want to seek those out who are going to be positive in their approach and outlook, as opposed to someone who's going to badmouth the other party. That's not what we're there for. I mean, granted, we want to share about our emotions and challenges we're facing, but they may have a different experience and see it from a different lens. So just be careful kind of who you confide in and who you can get positive support from. There's also all kinds of therapists out there, mental health therapists, psychologists, who can either see one parent individually, or sometimes there's group couple counseling and support. So both are definitely options, and you can do both as well for different reasons. Working with someone from your church or religious place where you go, the clergies can be helpful and provide some advice. There's also some support programs that different churches and different organizations put on. There's different groups out there to share information. But once again, be careful the kind of information. You want to weed through the positive and the negative things there to not let the influence in a negative way. And definitely, as a certified divorce coach, I help people before, during, and after divorce kind of consider all the different aspects that go into that, and maybe how to make things work, or maybe how to make things work if you do decide to go a different direction. And financial professionals like Michelle, who understand, help you understand what it's going to take to support that child in the future, as well as a financial professional to help you look at your current situation in terms of what it would look like for you to have a separate household. What is it going to cost? What are your budgets? All these things you want to think about so that you can make good decisions as you go forward. And of course, you want to work with a family law attorney, even just to get a consultation. You don't have to hire somebody right away, but it helps to know kind of what the laws are for divorce and what you're entitled to, what you need to maybe advocate for. So definitely these different professionals can provide some information, but if you're going to go down the other road, then you want to at least find out legally how things would work. And for all of these, you will definitely want to work with professionals who have experience with special needs, because some of these things may look different than, say, a typical professional may have experience with and be able to advise. So, but if say nothing works and your marriage just is over. You've tried all these things and it's just not working out. My biggest advice would be to remain as amicable as possible, meaning you want to get along, you want as much as you can. We want to do things in a positive way so that you're setting, being good role models once again for your children, because they're going to spend time with both of you. And the more difficult the situation, the more time, money, and energy you're going to spend on a divorce. And then some people I know have worked with just are ongoing battles with that ex-spouse. So we don't want that. We want to get through this and then live our lives and be as peaceful as we can. And so, how do we do that? So, bringing people in, having these positive mindsets, and thinking about the future, what the future vision is for our life, and what we want it to look like for our kids and ourselves is really important as part of that process. And know that you'll be co-parents for life. And co-parent, for those who aren't familiar, this means once you're divorced, then you're going to be parenting that child together. Some people is more amicable than others. Sometimes it takes a different route where it's called parallel parenting, when each parent kind of has their own way of doing things and necessarily don't want to do things in a more collaborative fashion. But that is the goal, to try to do it together. Because once our kids are 18, the needs are not going to just go away. We want to be able to be involved and have the other parent be involved with that child ongoing, even as an adult. And so we want to support the child through the transition, especially one who has a disability or IDD or autism. They're going to maybe have a longer time and ways to accept the changes that are happening to the family. When I was going through my divorce, it was really hard to find resources to help my kids. And that was my main goal, to make sure they came out of this process in a positive fashion. So I ended up putting together a social story, which a lot of you may have seen through schools or do for your families. I have one on my YouTube channel that shows how I did it for my family. I'm happy to help you guys through your transitions, through social stories and different ways to support the kids as well. But the point is not to rush into anything with kids who have a harder time accepting change. We want to do things gradually so that they know that to reduce their anxiety and know that they're going to be okay, even if they're going to be in two different households and the parents aren't living together. So it will be okay. The worst thing is to be in a situation where there's tension. If you're even say you want to get divorced but are concerned about the kids, have them having be in a situation where there's a lot of conflict in the home is not really healthy. So kind of consider it that way too, depending on your situation. And for divorce, it can be a new beginning. So that people think, oh, divorce is my life is over, it's the end, it's a failure. That's not the case. It just begins, one phase of your life. You're now is ending, and now you're starting something new. So look at me. I create a whole new career out of this, a whole new life, a whole new way of thinking. And so think of the positive things that you can do, maybe something that you haven't done in the past or something new that you've been wanting to do. This is a kind of a new time to explore. Not to say that you can't do these things while you're married. Definitely bring in some new life and new energy into your marriage. But sometimes the marriage is not going to continue, but we want to do it in a positive way as much as we can. And so that's why I started my company, Special Family Transitions, to provide divorce consulting and support and other kinds of support as well for special needs families. So in addition to being a certified special needs divorce coach, I also help teach that program and help create that program. But I'm also a transition coach, a life coach, divorce recovery coach. So I can help in different aspects that people even come to me for non-divorce related challenges. I'm happy to help out. So usually as a coach, I help one parent, kind of help advocate for them and understand their needs. But sometimes I've also gone through other trainings and have other ways of supporting people through my mediator training, parenting coordinator training. So that way I can be a neutral third party to kind of help you look at your situation in a different way. So maybe you're having a hard time in one area of your life. I can have you think about, okay, well, how is this going to affect my kids, and what can we do to create the best situation for everybody involved. And so, yeah, please reach out to me before, during, or after divorce, or whatever your situation might be. No judgments, everything's confidential.
Do you do a free consultation?
I do, I do. So I have a free consultation. So, to share about your situation, share about how I can help, and then we can see if working with me is the right answer for you, or I can connect you with other professionals. And so, yeah, I have tons of information that I share on my social media. Um, you can email me. The QR code there is to take you, I think, to my contact page so you can set up a time to speak. But I have lots of different social media platforms out there where I share information, share events, share resources. I do have a private Facebook group for those who are going through divorce or thinking about it. And then I've also just kicked off something new, which is a divorce with special needs children website where we're going to put together all kinds of resources to help you at whatever phase you may be to support you in your different challenges. And proud to say Consolidated Planning Group is one of our charter members there. So excited
Thank
about.
you so much for that.
Yeah, because they're here, as we both are, to help you no matter where you're located around the country, by Zoom and other methods. So if you're local, I'm happy to meet with you in person, but even my local clients like to meet over Zoom or phone call too, if you like that privacy.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for being here again with us, Marianne. Consolidated Planning Group, we love doing these free webinars. We welcome everybody. We never charge for these webinars because we think it's so important that this information is out there. I mean, we run across people all the time whose children are 18 and they've never even heard of the waiver programs or the fact that you need to sign your children up for those as soon as possible. There's just so much information that needs to be shared. So we cover many different topics in our webinar. You can go to this link once these slides are mailed to you. And you're going to be able to sign up for any of our upcoming webinars, see what the calendar looks like. And then once you sign up, you'll get reminders and you'll also be able to receive the slides and the link after the webinar happens. So that's always very beneficial. This is our entire team at Consolidated Planning Group. Again, we are located just outside of Houston. We've got two husband and wife pairs of financial advisors. We are an independent, holistic firm. And we're here, we're ready, and we're excited to help you. So we do offer a free Zoom consultation. You can call me directly or email me, and I can set that up for you. Or you can use the QR code or reach out to the office and they can set up your free consultation. We will be reaching out to you to try to get as many people to sign up for these free consultations as possible. But I promise you, we don't bite. We are truly trying to understand what questions you might have and how we can help serve you. And then, of course, we're going to learn a little bit about you and tell you about how we work and see if it would be a good opportunity for us to go through this together. So please feel free to give me a call or email. Let me schedule your free consultation. This page also has the links, of course, to our YouTube channel, our Instagram page, the podcast. Now, we used to put all of our YouTube videos on the podcast, but I think we've slowed down a little bit with that. But if you prefer to listen instead of watch, you can always check that out. And then, of course, our Facebook page is linked here as well so that you can figure out what upcoming webinars we have and what we're doing and all of that. So yes, again, thank you for everybody spending this hour with us, especially you, Marianne. All of your helpful information is greatly appreciated. I hope that we get to see you soon and hear from you if you have any further questions. Have a great week, a great day, and we'll talk soon. Thank you, Marianne.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.